Plymouth, Minnesota. Hello. Mrs. Greneland, first grade from Cleveland Elementary. Triton, third graders. Grade 2 from Cleveland. And Mrs. Rowell's fourth graders from Pine River. We're so happy to have you. We have Mrs. Oberton's third graders from Little Falls, Minnesota. Sunrise River School. Oh, yep. Now our YouTube friends are joining us too. So welcome to everyone. I'm Sue Knott, Education Specialist with Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom. And we are excited to have you. I'm just asking folks to use the Q&A section to tell us where you're joining us from. So we have first graders from Fergus Falls, Minnesota, Ortonville, Minnesota kindergartners, Mrs. Lilquist from Sabika. We are glad you are with us, and many, many others. So we have a huge number of classrooms joining us, nearly 300 this morning. So it's going to be hard for us to get all of your questions answered, but we are excited, really excited to bring you to a Minnesota turkey farm. So like I said, my name is Sue Knott. I'm an education specialist with the Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom. My colleague, my teammate, Carrie Seidel, is our tech person today, making sure everything's running smoothly. And then we are going to meet Hunter Kvistad, a turkey farmer here in Minnesota, and his camera person, his name is Ethan. So you might hear us talking about Ethan or other people to help make this field trip go really, really well. So we're going to go to this turkey farm in just a moment, but a couple things I want to let you know is that we do have lots of questions that you guys submitted ahead of time. So we're going to try to get those answered. If you think of additional questions that you would like to ask, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom or the comment feature in YouTube, and we'll try to get those questions asked. With so many people joining us, we might not get to all of them, but we will do our best. So it is 10:01. I think it's definitely time to get started. So we are going to go to Cottonwood, Minnesota, and we are going to meet Hunter Kvistad, who he tells us he's the youngest turkey farmer in the state of Minnesota, which I think is definitely true. So Hunter, say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Howdy, guys. Welcome to my farm. We're actually not in Cottonwood. That's where I live, but we're in Wood Lake, which is in southwestern Minnesota in Yellow Medicine County. I'm a third generation turkey farmer out here. And so this is my farm. I built this farm. I started building it in 2020. And I got my first turkeys September 23rd at 6 a.m. in 2021. I don't know what else you want to know, Sue. Oh, just like another good thing, another good fact about me. Iowa State, I'm an Iowa State graduate. Go Cyclones.
So Hunter, there's a bunch of questions that they want to know. Why did you want to be, or how did you decide to be a turkey farmer? How did you get started?
So in college, I realized that I wanted to have my own business and I didn't want to work for anybody necessarily. And so I really thought about it for a few years when I was in college. And I realized that the thing that I know best in the entire world is turkeys, because I grew up on a turkey farm about a mile north of here. So that's how I decided to get into the bird game.
Excellent. Okay, so it looks like you are not in the turkey barn right now. Tell us about the space that you are in currently.
Okay, so this is the service room, mechanical room, whatever you want to call it. This is where I have all my tools, equipment. My controllers are in here, my electrical, and most importantly, my coffee machine is in here. Can't live without that. Few things I'll showcase here, Ethan, if you want to come look over here. So this is this bad boy right here. Let you get over here. So this is my controller. This is like the brain of the barn. This is everything that happens in the barn comes through this controller, and this controller knows about. It knows how much water the turkeys have drank in the last 24 hours, how much feed they've had, how long heaters have been on, air ventilation, the temperatures all run through here. The entire barn is run off this controller here. So Ethan, if you can come in real close, I don't know if you can see it with the glare or not, but so this right here, so on that half of the barn, they've had 1,700 gallons of water in the last 24 hours, and almost the exact same on this side. And there's also, it says my feed, how much feed they've eaten. In the last 24 hours, they've eaten 9 tons of feed. Now, Another good question that I'm sure everyone's wondering, how many turkeys do I have? So in this barn, I have one whole flock. One flock for me is 40,000 turkeys. They're all hens, and they all are they're all raised and processed to be table birds. So these are the type of birds that are whole birds that are eaten on Thanksgiving. One other thing I want to showcase here in my service room is these bad boys over here. These are my medicators, chemulizers. So what these do is, so this back down here, this is the incoming water that I get that comes into the barn, and it comes through this filter system, and then it comes through a water meter, and then the water comes through this. And what this does is every 1 gallon of water that comes through here, it sucks up 1 ounce of whatever is in here. So what that allows me to do is to give the turkeys vitamins, vitamins, nutrients through their water. And so if my turkeys get sick, I can also give them medication through this way, through the water. And if you listen real close, I don't know if you can hear it, Sue, or not, but
I can hear you a little.
Yep, every one of those ticks, that's a gallon of water that the turkeys have drank. Today, I just have chlorine in here, and chlorine's really good for the turkey's respiratory system. It helps kill bacteria and whatnot in both the water lines and inside and in the birds when they drink it. So that's something really cool that I always like talking about. So now, Sue, give me 2 questions that you got. Give me 2 good
Okay,
ones.
excellent. Oh man, they are all good ones. But this is from Lindsay in Mesabi East, and she's a first grader. And first graders talk a lot about life cycles of chickens or turkeys, birds, all of them. So you mentioned that you have hens. Could you tell us what a hen is, and then all of the other types of turkeys, their names?
Okay, so there's 3 main names for turkeys. So a baby turkey, it's not a chick, it's a poult. That's what the name for a baby turkey. That's a really good term to know. It's the name for a baby turkey. And now a hen, and then there's hens and toms. Hens are females, toms are males. In this barn, we have all hens, all girl turkeys in the barn.
Excellent. Okay, this is from Julie in Mankato. She wants to know, do you grow your turkeys from eggs?
So I don't get the eggs. So I get the poults. They come on a truck from a hatchery, and the hatcheries there's a few hatcheries all across Minnesota I get them from, and there's one in Wisconsin. So they hold the eggs. The eggs are hatched at the hatchery, and then they're put in a box, and then they're put on a truck, on a temperature monitored truck, and then they're shipped to me, and then I unload them into a different barn, not the one that we're going to be going in today, but into a different barn. And all that happens typically within 12 hours or less. The birds are going from hatch to being in my barn, running around, playing, eating, drinking, having a blast.
All right, that's awesome. I have one more question for you, and then let's meet those turkeys. This is from Adrian in Miss O'Hara's class. The student must have been listening really closely when you were talking about the water, because the student wants to know, does the chlorine get digested by the turkey before we eat it?
Yeah, that's all gonna be flushed right out of the system. There's not gonna be any chlorine, and it's a very, very small. It doesn't taste. The water doesn't taste like chlorine. They can't even tell it's in there. It's a very minuscule amount of chlorine actually in the water. It's just enough to kill any bad bacteria to help keep my birds nice and healthy.
Excellent. And we know that healthy birds is exactly what you want. So before we go into the barn, do you want to tell us what you do to make sure that you don't bring any bad germs into those turkeys?
Yep. Okay. Number 1 rule on my farm is outside shoes stay outside. So as soon as I walk in the barn, I put on my barn shoes. These shoes, these boots, I should say, never go outside this barn, I should say. And that's the number 1 thing that I'm doing to keep bad diseases and bacteria out of my barn. Is I'm always focused on my shoes, and I'm wearing clean clothes every morning when I come into the barn and do my chores. I'm always have nice clean clothes on, so I know that I don't have anything bad on me. So now we'll go in the barn. So now the second thing that I always do is, so in this pan here, just a tote lid that I got, I just have water and then some disinfectant, and I get in there and I get my boots nice and cleaned up. You can see it's bubbling up from the disinfectant, and then I always get a pump of hand sanitizer, because you never know where your hands have been. So Ethan's gonna do the same thing, my cameraman, and then we're gonna go in the barn.
Okay, as we get ready to go in the barn, why don't you give us a little preview? How big is this barn, if you could compare it to something we might know?
Yeah, so this barn is 944 feet long. It's one of the longest barns you'll see in the turkey industry. That would be the length of 3 football fields all back to back. So it's pretty good sized.
Awesome. All right, well, let's check it out. And you said there's 40,000 hens in this barn. Is that correct?
Yep, 40,000 hens that'll all be processed for a whole birds, which is the type of bird that you'll eat on Thanksgiving. So these birds here that we're seeing, these are 7-week-old hens. I have them on my farm for 12 weeks, and then they'll go to Melrose, Minnesota. I sell them to Genio. I own the birds. I'm an independent grower. I own everything. And then I sell these birds to Genio, and then they're processed in Melrose, Minnesota, and they're sold packaged as Genio birds.
Awesome. So if we see Genio in the grocery store, they could be coming from your farm.
Yes.
So awesome. Okay, Hunter, we have a lot of questions about what your turkeys eat and how you feed them.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to start with that.
Yep. Come on. Get in here nice and close, Ethan. So this right here, this is the feed line. So if you get a shot all the way down. This is about 400. I think it's 420 feet long, I want to say. That rings a bell. And on the end of the barn, I have a feed tank. Outside, I have feed tanks. I have 3 18-ton feed tanks that bring the feed into the barn. And then there's hoppers down on the end. And I fill the hoppers. And then when this feed line runs low on feed, it turns on and it starts pulling the feed from one end of the barn, from the far end of the barn to the middle, filling every single one of these feed pans on its way down. And then when it gets down to the end here, this right here is a shut-off switch. It's a paddle switch on the inside that the feed hits when it's full, and it shuts off this motor that turns off the feed line. So now if we look at what the feed is, so this is all corn. This is not all corn. This is a combination of corn, soybeans, vitamins, and minerals. And all my corn and soybeans, they're grown in central Minnesota in the Wilmer areas where I get all my feed and where the corn and soybeans come from. Another good fact about this. So in this flock, when I sell it, typically the birds will weigh about 12 to 15 pounds, which will process out to about a 11 to 13 pound turkey in the grocery store. But now when you have a 15-pound turkey, that means that turkey's eaten 30 pounds of feed in its life. It takes 2 pounds of this feed to create 1 pound of meat on the turkey.
Wow, that's a pretty good conversion. So there's a couple questions, and you may have mentioned this. You said that these turkeys are 7 weeks old. How old are they when they're full grown and when they go to Genio?
12 weeks. They'll be 12 weeks. They're 12 weeks old. When they're 12 weeks old, that's when they get shipped out to Melrose and get processed.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've seen what they eat. We also know that they drink a lot of water. Do you want to show us how they drink that?
Yep. So okay, these are the water lines. They're the same length as the feed lines. I don't even know how many waters there are in this barn. I would guess a few thousand. And so what it is so the water is in this pipe here, flowing down to the very end, coming from the service room which we were in. The water flows down this pipe. And now when the turkey, let's imagine this is a turkey, comes in here and it sticks his head in here and it's drinking water. There's water down here at the bottom of the cup. But when it hits the pendulum, it pushes it to the side. And then water comes out of this little little nipple here comes down, water flows down, it gets fresh cold water to the turkeys at all times. So the turkeys 24/7, their whole entire life, 365 days a year, they have access to fresh water, unlimited feed. My barn is at a consistent temperature of 72 degrees. It's always 70. So no matter what the temperature is outside, last night, I think the nighttime low was like 17. It was 72 degrees in the barn. That's the most comfortable temperature for the birds. So that's what I like to keep it, because I like to treat my birds how I'd like to be treated. And I think 72 is a good temp.
I would agree. I think that sounds awesome, Hunter. Okay, here's a question from Mr. O's 5th grade class. They want to know, is there a lot of turkey waste and what do you do with it?
Yep. Hey, great question, guys. Great question. Okay. So this down here, this is the bedding. This is the manure in the bedding. So what I do with this is I put in fresh bedding so it's a combination of wood shavings and wood shavings and sunflower holes. And what I do with it is I sell it to my neighbor, who then takes the manure and he spreads it out in his field and he grows crops on it. So it's just puts it into the full rotation.
Excellent. That's awesome that you get to work with your neighbor and provide some fertilizer for their crops. So This question is from Miss Gregory's 3rd grade class in Rockford. They want to know, what is normal turkey behavior? So we can see those turkeys are kind of behind you. How do they normally act? Like, what's their usual?
Day in the life of a turkey. You wake up and you go to bed with the sun. And so the first thing when the sun comes up in the morning, they all wake up and they hammer the feed. Turkeys eat a majority of their food right away in the morning. So when I come in here in the morning, right when the sun, if I'm in here in the morning, right when the sun comes up, these feed lines will be lined up the whole way up and down with turkeys mowing down on feed. They eat a bunch of feed, and then they drink a ton of water, and then they take a nap. So you can see a lot of birds are laying down right now. They're taking their mid-morning nap. So it's just like when you get done on Thanksgiving, after you just ate a big plate of turkey, mashed potatoes, all that good stuff, mac and cheese, pumpkin pie, you feel tired and you want to take a nap. That's the same way the turkeys feel every morning, every day. And so then they take their nap, they wake up, and then they run around the barn with their friends. And I don't know friends, but they run around the barn, hang out with each other, eat some more, drink some more, maybe take another nap, go see what's going on this end of the barn, go see what's going on this end of the barn, just hang out all day.
So we have a couple of questions about how the turkeys get along. So Mariah from Winona wants to know, what do you do if turkeys aren't getting along with each other? And then we have Maria, who's from California, Bakersfield, California.
Oh.
She wants to know, do you notice turkeys creating social bonds with each other? So do they get along? Do they not get along? What do you notice about that?
Yeah, so hens are they're a very mellow bird. For the most part, they get along. Every once in a while, I'll see 2 birds getting at it for I don't know why, but I break up the fight. I get over there, I give them a scolding, yell at them. But for the most part, I would say 99% of the time they get along very well. And social life, so turkeys are flock animals, which is genetically they're a flock animal. So when you see turkeys in the wild, they're hanging out together. You'll see a bunch of turkeys together. So it's the same thing in the barn. They're always hanging out together. They always want to be right next to each other and hanging out. So that's why you can see that all these turkeys over here, they're all laying down together and hanging out. But then maybe you can't see it on the video, but way down on the far end, there's not too many birds down there. They're all hanging out here, hanging out together. So they do have some social bond, I would say.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned wild turkeys. So let's talk about a few people have asked questions about that. Carrie at St. Bernard's and students at Victoria Elementary in Victoria, Minnesota want to know, how are wild turkeys and farm-raised turkeys the same and different?
Well, obviously the color is a little different. You know, turkeys are white. That's just a genetic trait that they've gotten together it's put together throughout the years. But I mean, other than that, I really couldn't tell you that much difference between the two. You know, maybe these ones grow. I would say maybe these farm raised turkeys grow a little faster, but other than that, I don't really know specifically any specifics on that.
Okay, that's great. Lori Stevenson from Cedar Park Elementary in Apple Valley wants to know what breed or variety of turkeys you raise.
So there's two breeds of turkeys that are raised in livestock. It's what's called a hybrid turkey and a Nicolette turkey. And both of those, I do believe, this might be a bad fact, I don't know for sure, but I want to say they're both genetically bred in Minnesota. I think I saw that somewhere, but I could be wrong.
All right, well, we'll trust you and we'll say that they're from Minnesota.
Yeah. Here's another cool thing I'll show everybody. So Ethan, if we come over here, so in my barn, I'm always giving the birds fresh air. I always like to keep the air nice and fresh in here. And so I run fans, exhaust fans. So I'm sucking air out of the barn and I have incoming air coming in from the ceiling. All these red and black squares on the ceiling, those are inlets, and it's sucking air from outside and bringing it in. So these are what an exhaust fan looks like. This one I have off because it's cold outside, so I don't need to be running too many fans. But so this right here, this pulls out a lot of air, and it really helps. And it helps keep the air nice in the barn. Good for the birds. Good for bird health, respiratory system.
Yeah, that's awesome to get that fresh air. And this sort of relates to Eddie in Miss Levine's class. He wants to know, do the turkeys go outside or are they inside their whole 12 weeks?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So my turkeys all stay in the barn. So, and I do that because I want to keep them in a climate controlled environment and I want to keep predators away from the birds. I don't want any foxes, coyotes, hawks, eagles snatching my birds. So I always keep them inside the barn.
Excellent. Okay, keeps them safe. So here's a question from Molly. She wants to know, how do turkeys sleep?
Pretty much they sleep just like you. If you look at these girls right here, they lay down on their stomachs. They sit down, but then they tuck their head beneath their wing. I don't know if I see one sleeping right now because I'm too loud and they're all mad at me because I'm waking up from their nap. But yeah, they lay down, then they tuck their head underneath their wing is how they sleep.
All right, we have a bunch of questions about these turkeys. They're kind of the stars of the show today. So here's a question from Jane in Lewiston, Minnesota. She wants to know, do turkeys smell? Can turkeys smell?
Yeah, I mean, there's a smell to them, but yeah, I don't really notice it. I don't think it smells bad, but some people do, but yes, there is a smell to them.
Do you think the turkeys can smell us or do they have a good sense of smell?
I don't know that. I would assume they can smell. I would assume that, but I don't know if they got a good sense of smell, bad sense of smell. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, that would be something our students could do a little research and figure out. Yep. So here's a question from Shannon in Halleck. Kindergartners want to know, do turkeys really gobble and do they make other noises?
Okay, great question. So actually, tom turkeys, which we talked about earlier, male turkeys, they gobble. My turkeys, hens, they click. So it's they don't give the gobble gobble gobble. You probably can't hear them because of the mic I got going on, but they make a click sound, not a gobble. My turkeys. But yes, toms gobble, hens click.
Okay, so here's another specific question, and I don't know if Ethan can get a close-up of a turkey, but do hens have a waddle? That was an interesting question. So maybe tell us what a waddle is, and if we can see if hens have them or not.
Yeah, if you can get a good shot on this. Oh, so they do. So the waddle is the little itty bitty piece right on the top of their head. And that's the one that it grows big and then it dangles down. Toms get a very large waddle, but hens don't. That's a big distinguishing feature between male and female turkeys is the waddle.
Right. Well, these hens look like they're having a good time today. So, and we know that I've talked several times about bird health and how you try to make sure
Yep.
these turkeys stay really healthy. But maybe
Yeah.
some of our viewers have heard about the bird flu or avian influenza. Miss
Yep.
Germschild's class in Cleveland wants to know if you're worried about the bird flu.
Very, very. It's been on my mind. So I kind of got bad luck in the sense that my first year farming, the bird flu came around. But yeah, the bird flu is a very bad disease that you can get in your turkeys, and it will end up, unfortunately, end up killing all your birds. So that's a huge thing that I'm combating, and it's so bird flu, it's spread by wild fowl like ducks and geese and whatnot, and then it can get into the turkeys, and it'll kill them. That's a huge problem that we're dealing with right now, but I'm combating it with a lot of disinfectant, cleaning my boots, clean hands, clean clothes. Um, I during peak of the bird flu, I would park way away from my barn because I didn't know what was on my truck. I was cleaning everything, and I had a four-wheeler with a boom sprayer, and I would spray down my whole entire farm with disinfectant about twice a day. I was going through around 100 gallons of disinfectant a day, trying to kill any bird flu bacteria that was maybe on my farm. Luckily, I have not had it, which has been an extreme blessing to myself and my flocks.
Awesome. I hope it stays that way, Hunter. So here's a question
Yes.
from Miss Covington's 8th graders. She wants to know, how many turkeys does Minnesota produce in 1 year?
Oh, so Minnesota is the #1 turkey producing state in the country. Minnesota raises 46 million turkeys a year alone. A lot of
And
birds.
yeah, that's awesome. And we're glad you're one of those turkey farmers. So a few more
Yeah.
questions. Here is
Yep.
one. Lindsay wants to know, do all 40,000 turkeys leave your farm at once?
Yes. Yes. They all get processed. So what happens is there's a loader comes, and it's a conveyor that they put in the end of the barn. And then we walk birds to the end, and they go on a conveyor onto semis, and then they go to the processing plant. All that happens at night when the birds are a lot calmer. Yep, but we do it all in one night, load out all these birds.
Okay, so here's a question from YouTube. Mr. Roser's class wants to know if you ever name your turkeys.
Um, it's hard to I'll call a bird one thing, but I don't really know if I ever see that bird again. They all look very similar, but the names don't stick very well when you don't ever really know if you see that bird again.
And so you may have talked about this before, but a few people are asking, how many groups of 40,000 do you get in 1 year? How many flocks?
Yep. So I raise 6 flocks of turkeys a year. So I raise by myself on my farm, I raise 240,000 turkeys a year that go on to tables every year. That go onto tables. I feed a lot of people, I feed a lot of people, and that's the main reason. That's another reason why I'm a farmer and why I really love what I do. It's because I feed a lot of people, and it's a very fulfilling job knowing how many people I'm feeding and pounds of turkey, and hopefully I make everybody happy. I've never had a bad review, but I've also never had anybody that knew for sure that they were eating my bird.
So here's a couple that relates specifically or really well to a couple of questions that I think we only have about 2 minutes left. So from students in Sabika and also in Tyler, Minnesota, they want to know, what is your favorite thing about raising turkeys?
My favorite thing about raising turkeys is probably like I just said, like knowing how many people I feed in the world, and I don't, who knows how far away my turkeys end up going and how many mouths they feed, but it's a very fulfilling part of the job, and that's probably my favorite. And just a shout out to maybe that class in Tyler, Mrs. Abraham's first grade class, who is a old high school friend of mine. She said she was tuning in today. I want to give her a shout out.
That was a question from her class, so I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And I
Great
know
question, guys.
Lakeview is the school nearest to you, which you're a graduate from of high school.
Alma mater.
So if there's any Lakeview students joining us, Hello, welcome. We're glad you're with us.
Yes,
And
yes.
you, Hunter, you mentioned that you're a graduate of Iowa State University. Is there
Yep.
any special training or education that you have to be a turkey farmer?
No, not necessarily. There's just a lot of there is turkey health programs and like poultry science degrees throughout the country, but that's not something I went with. I got a egg engineering degree. But no, there's nothing super specific that you need to know, but there is just a lot of information that kind of makes sense, you
Yeah,
know.
that makes sense. I have one final question for you, and comes
Yep.
from a couple people. They asked if any students watching are interested or curious about being a turkey farmer, what advice would you offer them?
Yeah, it's a great industry. There's thousands and thousands of jobs in the turkey industry that we're looking for people every single year, every single day. You know, everything from a veterinarian, vet techs, semi drivers, feed nutritionists, um, builders, electricians. We always need electricians around here. Stuff's all electric, everything's so electrical and it's always breaking. And I don't always feel the most comfortable around electricity. So we're always needing electricians, turkey farmers. There's so many jobs in the industry for people.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I hope some of our students viewing consider career opportunities in
Yeah.
the turkey industry. Well, Hunter, we
Yep.
cannot thank you enough for bringing us to
Yeah.
your farm and showing us
Yeah.
around
Thanks for
and
coming
telling
out.
us. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
fun. It was fun to meet you and see your
I got
turkeys.
I
Go
got
ahead.
one more. I got one more shout out to Mr. Baker's kindergarten class in Niles, Illinois. He's a college friend of mine. He said he was tuning in also. Big shout
All
out to
right.
him also.
Hello, Mr. Baker's class. I'm glad. I hope you're here. So
Yeah.
our time is up, but I hope that you guys have learned at least one or two more things about turkeys grown here in Minnesota and Hunter Kvistad and
Yeah.
his turkey farm. Teachers, we do have in our Ag Mag magazine series an article called Tracking a Turkey that talks through all of the steps in raising turkeys. And we also linked in the chat, the Minnesota Turkey Growers Association has a website with lots of fantastic turkey facts. So thanks for joining us. We hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving and think about farmers like Hunter who work really hard to provide that turkey for our Thanksgiving meals. So thanks everybody. Have a
Yeah.
fantastic day.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you so much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Hunter.
it.